So, hey guys, welcome to the newest episode of the SaaS Sessions podcast. This is me, Sunil. I'm your host for today. I have an amazing guest with me, Abhijeet Vijayvergiya. Abhijeet is the co founder and CEO of Nektar.ai, which is a Singapore based startup founded in this year, Feb 2020. It is focused on building revolutionary, first of its kind system of growth for the sales teams that will help the sales reps close more deals faster, better, and bigger. Prior to founding Nektar, Abhijit was the president and managing director at Capillary Technologies, which is one of the biggest SaaS companies in India, where he was responsible for Asia Pacific business and the global accounts portfolio of the company. So, hey Abhijit, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi Sunil. Thanks for having me on the show. Quite excited to talk to you today. How you been?
I'm doing good, Abhijit. And is there anything that I missed in your intro, or you wanna introduce yourself in your own words as well?
No, I think you covered it quite well. I'm quite excited in the new journey that I have taken up. We just founded Nectar barely 3 months ago, and that's when I think the world found COVID.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting that way. So we were trying to do something very disruptive. We're looking at sales as a function and sales productivity as an important area of
Right.
focus, and how we can help improve the life of sales teams. I mean, I've been a salesperson myself, and I've worked with hundreds of salespeople, seen a lot of close friends lose jobs of not meeting quota, seen a lot of reps kill their quota. So I've always been puzzled with the fact that what defines a rockstar salesperson, and how every rep or every salesperson out there can do
Mhm.
better than what they are currently doing. Everybody makes a lot of effort, but then that not necessarily results into the success that the organization and the rep wants. So we just
Mhm.
went after this problem statement, and we thought we attempt solving it. So it's a very passionate topic and something very close to my heart.
Yep.
And yeah, I started off on that journey. So quite excited. Just 3 months and liking every day that we have spent. And thanks to COVID, we're getting a lot of time thinking through how we are going to solve this. So very excited. Yeah.
Totally. That's really great. So we'll get to Netcar in a bit, Abhijit. Let's talk about, you said you've been into sales from long, but how did you get into sales coming from a chemical engineering background?
Yeah, glad you you pointed out my background. So back then, where I studied, I graduated in 2007, and I want to do something in chemical engineering to be honest at that time, because that's the field I studied, and I thought I'll do something there. And my first job was quite exciting. I took up a role at Larsen and Toubro, based in Mumbai, one of the biggest engineering conglomerates of India, and got an exciting project of working on hydrogen blended fuels. So I would say that was my
Mhm.
first view on building something new. That's how I got exposed. So I started my career that way, where I was part of a team which was building something new. So we are focused on building a product around alternative energy, how hydrogen can be leveraged as a fuel, how you can create automobiles or blenders which can blend hydrogen on the site with natural gas, and then you can generate a fuel that can be used to power vehicles in a much more cleaner manner. So very exciting start there, where I used chemical engineering. I used my time to create something new, a product that we built. And we did quite well. The first 3 years, the product went ahead. We launched it very successfully as a prototype. But
Uh-huh.
obviously, I mean, the whole oil economy is too big, and I think there's still more time for an alternative fuel to come out. So it was taking a bit more time for the product to go commercially live, and that's when Capillary was happening, which is where I came into sales. We got founded. Anish, the founder at Capillary, knew me from IIT days, and we spoke, and I really liked what they were building. So I joined them. I joined them in the customer success team. This was like Jan of 2011. They'd already figured out the product market fit. They started growing probably around $500,000 in ARR at that time. And this was like way back in time when you mentioned to anybody that you're building you have a cloud based product, and you're offering that, people will look up in the sky. So cloud was that new, right?
Yeah.
So very early days, so we had to figure a lot of things firsthand. Not much of a learning in place for us in the ecosystem. Now the SaaS ecosystem is quite big for for anybody to lean on to and learn from peers and from people who have been there and done that. But at that time, we
Mhm.
actually had to do a lot of things on our own. So we figure I started off in customer success there, and very interesting part of working with my clients, understanding how the users were feeling, getting some of those learnings, doing a quick turnaround to engineering team, enhancing the product, building it quite fast. So I was doing a pseudo product management while we didn't have a defined role, and I was actually in customer success. So it was quite interesting, a truly startup experience early on. And then in
Mm-hmm.
2014, like I tried my hand at sales. Like Ani just told me one day that why don't you try selling? And yeah, and I never did anything else after that, I must say. Like, so last 7 years, it's been like sales, sales, and sales for me. I
Mm-hmm.
just love the passion and excitement that comes along in selling, whether it is a high that one gets on closing a hard fought deal, or the
Yeah.
learning that comes along when you lose a deal. It really pinches you. But yeah, the learning makes you come back stronger. So you fight back and you figure out what you did wrong, and then you come back stronger for the next deal. So I quite liked sales, and then yeah, I just fell in love with it. And just from say being an individual contributor to building a team as we were growing, to opening new markets, going deeper in the existing markets, ramping up sales productivity. So a lot of things that comes alongside. So one thing
Mm-hmm.
led to other, and yeah, so I started doing all things growth there. Yeah.
That's really interesting, Abhijit. So one thing that really strikes me is if you've seen all the most, not all, but most of the SaaS companies in India, they follow this functionality or this kind of approach, which is like build in India and sell in the US. But you were responsible at Capillary for expanding in Southeast Asia. So how was that? Why was that decision taken, so early at Capillary, and how was that decision for you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and very relevant for everyone today, because I think SaaS and in general opens countless opportunities for anybody anywhere in the world, right? So you can
Uh-huh.
build products from anywhere and you can sell to anywhere.
Right.
And US being a key market, I think is the first go-to market for any company who's building product anywhere. And obviously India is the third biggest hub for SaaS products after US and China. And most Indian companies generally go into US, and that's the right strategy as well. Obviously, it comes with its own risk and complexity, and what one needs to do right to be successful. For us at Capillary, it was not about the US opportunity to go after in the first go. It was more about what we were good at and what
Mm-hmm.
is there on the table. So we thought rather than going for a moonshot, we just go for something which is low hanging and we do an end game there. We saw our
Right.
strength in emerging markets because we started off in India. We saw, and retail was a focus because being a vertical focused company, we saw retail
Right.
where we saw a lot of traction, and we ended up being a vertical focused company. And retail was behaving very differently in emerging markets versus developed markets like US. I mean,
Yeah.
Amazon was killing everybody in US back in 2011, 2012. You look at that's the time when they started really
Mhm.
killing everybody there. Retail as a
Yeah.
sector was like degrowing in US. And whereas retail was growing quite significantly well in India, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and some of the emerging markets in Asia. So
Mhm.
one was that checkpoint for us that okay, as a sector specific focus, this makes more sense for us. Second, it was close proximity, similar buying behavior. I mean, the way Southeast Asian people behave versus Indian, I think it's quite similar. A lot of similarities on the culture, diaspora, and
Right.
everything else. So it was a lot more easy and intuitive for us, and we just felt that there's a lot more opportunity. In terms of market size, also, if you look at South Asia in total, would probably represent a similar market opportunity like a country for a country like India. So we just felt that okay, let's treat Southeast Asia as another country. So it should be an
Right.
equivalent business for us the way we built in India. Parallelly, we were starting Middle East, which again is a great market, big opportunity, a lot of money out there for SaaS
Mhm.
companies as well. And US, we just because of our sector specific focus, we just felt that US might not be the right time for us to focus on when there was money on the table. Yeah. So yeah, now I think Capillary is getting into US as well as we speak. So it's the right time for them to focus on. So we went with doing an end game with our core markets rather than opening another big market
Yeah.
where we already have some sectoral challenge. Yeah.
That's a great approach. So what's the difference between selling in US versus selling in Southeast Asia? Is there any significant difference?
Yeah, I would say selling in Southeast Asia is quite similar to selling in India. Even selling in Middle East is quite similar to selling in India. There's not much of a learning curve out there. While obviously there has to be this, you need to embrace the cultural nuances, the people side of it. There's obviously the diversity in terms of language and all of those things. But it's more like how probably I would say Asian approach versus a Western approach. I mean, there is obviously a difference in which the people behave shows up in business practices, shows up in all things associated with that. So US, I would say, I mean, I've sold in US. We actually have some global accounts, and I used to manage that portfolio as well. And we have a lot of our principal clients being headquartered in US. So I've been there. I've interacted with professionals in those markets. So one thing that I've seen there is a key behavior between the users, how the product is adopted. Like I think Asia, people would like to be served a bit more versus self-service. So US is a lot more DIY, do it yourself,
Yeah.
versus Asia where I think we like a bit more service element along with the productized thing. Especially if you look at configurations or like in terms of self use of a product or implementing it, we will like somebody to come and implement it. Whereas in US, people would even want it to implement it for you. So that itself is a big factor which would define how you sell, how you build your product, how's your UI like, and a lot of those things. Second is US is a very vertical focus of a market where people appreciate that you need to be best at what you do and you need to be really deep at the vertical offering
Right.
versus so when I say vertical offering, it's more the point solution that we are offering versus Asia where it's more value based approach where customers would expect you to offer a one-stop shop solution or more for less. So that's something
Yeah.
which is there in the DNA, I would say, in the Asian people, which definitely works on the business standpoint as well. So if you're offering a product, they would expect three more things along with it compared to US where they'll if they're taking you for email marketing, I mean they'll expect you to only do email marketing. They'll not expect you to run an SMS campaign or a loyalty program alongside, right? So you
Yeah.
end up building a lot more features and selling a lot more features in Asia as that package, whereas in US it's more about okay, you're doing one thing and then they'll have 10 tools for doing 10 different things which are doing the overall job. So yeah, so those are the nuances which I discovered which are quite interesting, and that basically defines the approach from your GTM, sales and product standpoint. Yeah.
Hmm. That's a very interesting perspective. I mean, looking at markets in Southeast Asia versus looking at markets in US and selling into these two markets, that's a really great perspective to look from, right? So, and what percentage of business Capillary drove from just Southeast Asia as compared to the rest of the world?
Yeah, it would be more than 30% of the business was coming from Southeast Asia. So it was quite significant, I would
Okay,
say.
nice.
It is the fastest growing market for us
Yeah, yeah,
across because we've been Asia focused. So it's India, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and China for us. So
right.
Southeast Asia in general has seen a lot of traction and growth, and we will continue to see a lot of growth there.
Right. So do you see like Indian SaaS companies following the same approach? Like I know a couple of companies like MoEngage and CleverTap as well, like who are also selling big in Southeast Asia. So do you see like this is kind of a trend that they're following, that Capillary said that you can expand in Southeast Asia and markets as well as and get as big as you can probably get by selling in the US.
Yeah, I think it's definitely given an alternative or another pathway for any
Mhm.
growing SaaS business built in India. That okay, US obviously is the holy grail. It's the biggest market. You have to be like $1 billion revenue company in SaaS. Definitely, US has to be like a market you need to tick. I mean, it's early days for Asia to consume and offer that kind of a SaaS market to any company which is selling only in Asia in terms of a revenue standpoint. So I would say US, while is the first place where most companies will
Mhm.
internationally look to expand, and that should be the case. And it takes time to figure that it should be done.
Right.
But I
Hmm.
believe Southeast Asia is money on the table. So my
Right.
advice to, and I advise a lot of SaaS startups and help a lot of like fellow professionals in the ecosystem within the SaaS industry who are looking to expand in Southeast Asia. My advice to them is that Southeast Asia, think of it as money on the table. I mean, if you're doing India well, you got your product market fit,
Mhm.
do sell in Southeast Asia. I just think of it like in another state for you. Like if you're selling in different states of India, you just sell to Southeast Asia like you're selling into another state. I mean, it's quite easy. There are some nuances to be picked up, but you can definitely embrace them quite quickly. You can very quickly settle in. You get a lot of respect as well for a product made in India, very well accepted in Southeast Asia. You get a lot. Time zones are similar, so the coordination with clients and everything is a lot more easier as well. and the partner ecosystem gets cross leverage. A lot of decision making happens in, like, say, Singapore turns out to be a lot of, for a lot of companies, it turns out to be a regional headquarter. So you can
Right.
actually close a deal in Singapore for, say, 10 countries, including India, Indonesia, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and like that. So there are a
Right.
lot of those possibilities that exist where one tend to miss out on opportunities by just ignoring the thing which is very adjacent to you. So my advice has always been that don't leave money on the table, and
Right.
have a
Hmm.
strategy for this market which offers a great opportunity. While US obviously is something which should be a long term plan for any SaaS organization. But again, I think it depends on how you're building the product. For me, I think the
Yeah.
product
Hmm.
and the user is very important. Who is going to be a user and buyer, and what the product is all about.
Totally.
If it's
Yeah.
built for US, then obviously you have to do just US. But if it's something like, if you give example of MoEngage and CleverTap, they are into the digital marketing space, and Southeast Asia is one of the fastest growing digital economies globally, apart from India and China. A big
Hmm.
market. So obviously it made a lot of sense for them to come here. For us at Capillary, it made a lot of sense because retail was growing in Southeast Asia as well, whereas it
Hmm.
was declining in US. So we had our right reasons to come there. So I would also like probably give that advice with a pinch of salt to everybody, that just look at your product market fit and the user and buyer, and
Yeah.
see Southeast Asia is a tick box, then just go and have the same GTM. So if you're selling in India and you're getting a success, you should be selling in Southeast Asia. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting insights for everyone who's trying to, sell or planning to sell in Southeast Asia. So, to build this big market and, to get success from this market, right? So you would have a great team who'll be carrying these things out for you, and obviously you as well, to lead that team. So you are really, when you mentioned in your introduction as well, right? So you're really passionate or really interested about this whole sales productivity thing, and you want to you did improve the lives of sales team at Capillary while they were doing this amazing job of expanding in Southeast Asia. So how did you increase the productivity at Capillary?
Yeah, so I had, like, I go by first principles, and I think sales is one of the most disciplined function. Not
Hmm.
sure whether that's the external view of people who are not into sales how they see it, but it's one of the most
Uh-huh.
disciplined function. One needs to be highly organized, methodical with respect to the opportunities they get in the top of the funnel, how you qualify them, how you follow up with them, how you nurture them, how intelligently you move them from one stage to another. Once you say hello, how you bring that to a closure, and there are like 7 to 8 steps that are involved from an hello to a closure, how you go about doing that. So there's a lot of method, lot of process there. And people generally see sales as as an art, whereas there's a lot of art and science combined in sales. And the art part of sales is a lot more glorified, gets a lot of stage time, screen time, for that matter, whereas a lot of science is there in the back end, which drives a lot of success. So I think what I tried to do at Capillary was to get into the science a lot more. So it's good to make a great presentation and be able to, like, wow your client when you're meeting them. But then finally, when clients are buying, they'll see a substance. You need to provide that value for which they are signing up for. And for them to be like convinced on the value, they need to go through a lot of process with respect to how you create a value proposition for them, how you are able to convince them that you are delivering that value proposition in the best possible manner, and how you are able to add value once they buy from you. So there are, like, I think, three fundamentals question on sales which I would get everybody to answer, and they're like quite fundamental to anyone. The buyer would need to know why they buy anything, why they buy from buy now, and why they would buy from you. So those are three very simple questions, but there's a lot of complexity behind getting those three questions answered. So we went ahead with codifying our own frameworks, codifying our own playbooks at Capillary with respect to how we'll approach a new lead that comes in, how we approach an opportunity which is an inquiry stage, what is the next step required to move it to a demo, and from a demo to a solution preparation, how the collaboration can be called out, from solution preparation to like a solution presentation, what needs to be done with respect to stakeholder engagement, what are the steps that need to be codified, from the stakeholder engagement or solution presentation to the negotiation stage, what are the objection handling things a seller needs to keep in mind, from a negotiation stage to a documentation stage, again how you can invoke a collaboration between different functions in your organization for getting approval on the discounts to the start dates, aligning the customer success teams, and a lot more that goes around once you have the go ahead from the customer. And then once you sign up the customer, how you open up them for upselling and cross selling, how you onboard them easily, and then how you can continue the relationship. Because SaaS especially is not just about hunting; it's a lot more about farming as well. You get a lot of value from a customer from expansion. So we need the sales continues thereafter as well. So how you continue that motion and you connect both sales and customer success team through a formal process and a playbook, and then you track and measure it. So I did a lot of experiments there. I did a lot of research at my end, and we implemented a lot of things which were quite successful. We definitely struggled a bit around training and ramping people faster, and that just made me think on that while you have a codified template and playbook, how you can consistently implement those for newer reps that you're hiring, or reps who are like moving into a new role and coming back. So that's when I just started thinking deeper around the whole sales productivity thing and how you can democratize the sales productivity principles. And that's how Nectar was born. And I started looking at what's out there. I didn't find a tool which did what I was intending to do. And I thought, why don't I go ahead and build a tool myself? And I quit Capillary after a phenomenal 9 years that I spent there, and started Nectar in the Feb of 2020.
So that's really interesting. I mean, so you did a lot of things in sales productivity to increase the productivity of your team at Capillary, and that's what gave you the way to create Netcar.ai, which is like your own product because you didn't see a product like this in the market. So that's a great story. So let's talk more on Netcar now. So what is like Netcar.ai? Like what is Netcar? What does it do?
So Nectar, as you know, is Greek for honey. So it's
Uh,
nectar with a K, Greek for honey. And I basically thought about that from the synonym, or I would say a parallel that you can draw from honeybees with salespeople, right? I mean, honeybees need to be quite diligent, methodical, the hard work that goes in from creating something valuable out of a basic thing like pollens and
uh,
flower. They generate something valuable called honey.
mhm,
Same way, like salespeople do a lot of hard work, collaboration, and bring out money for the organization, right? So that was
right.
my logic behind like naming it Nectar. So it's
Yeah.
very closely linked to like the sales teams in general. So that was the logic there with respect to if you look at a high level on why I went with that name. And when I started off Nectar, I spent a lot of time on research. So I actually looked at 200 plus sales tools out there across different things that they do in sales, whether it's content management systems to CRM systems to prospecting platforms, to lead qualification systems, to call recording and voice analytics systems that you
Mm-hmm.
see today. So I looked at a lot of them. And most of these systems are built for auditing a salesperson. They are meant to give visibility to the sales leadership, meant for giving a visibility to the organization with respect to either record management of their data or letting
Mm-hmm.
them know what the salesperson is up to. But none
Uh-huh.
of these tools are focused on helping the person do something better. So they're all focused on giving more visibility or reporting back to the organization what is not happening or what's going wrong with the salesperson. But nobody's getting into this aspect of what can be done to help the salesperson to perform better. And that's the approach we took at Nectar, that will build a tool which is going to be focused on the user experience, which in this case is salesperson, and we
Mm-hmm.
want to spend a lot of time understanding the journey of the salesperson. I have done sales myself. I and the team that we have at Nectar, we all understand sales quite well. Been through it,
Uh-huh.
and we're building it with the feel in mind on what the salesperson is feeling on a day-to-day basis, what they go through, and
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of the whole reps journey and the feeling on what they do on a day-to-day basis, what you will see or getting orchestrated on the product once we launch. So we're going ahead with a very different approach. And the first product that comes out of Nectar's portfolio is going to be a product called Amigo,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be the AI friend for the sales team,
Mm-hmm.
which will stay with them, work with them almost on an always on mode to guide them and help them better with respect to what they can do compared to what they are currently doing. So yeah, that's the approach we are taking there as we are building the product. And I think it's a big global problem if you look at it. I mean, I earlier thought that the problem of sales productivity could be only for startups, or it could be limited to a certain group of companies that I might have interacted with. But it's a global problem. When I actually went and extended my research, can you guess how many salespeople, what percent of salespeople missed quota in 2019 globally? Guess a
Mm,
number.
around 40-45%.
It's 57%. Whopping
Oh,
57% of the people globally, salespeople globally missed their quota attainment
oh,
in
damn.
2019. 2019 was a great year, right? I mean, it was not like 2020 where COVID or any situation is
Yeah.
there.
hmm
Uh, and that's been the trend. I mean, more than 50% of people globally miss their sales quota. Would you know how much time it takes for a new rep to perform as well as a tenured rep? How many days it would take for a new rep to perform similar to a tenured rep?
Just taking a guess here, probably 90 to 120 days.
No, it takes 381 days. So it's more than
Oh,
a
so it's like
year.
more than a year.
Yes,
hmm
yes. That's that kind of an investment that goes in from an organization, and that's the pain the rep also goes through before they start performing to the tenured capacity. A typical rep spends around 35% of the time selling, and out of that, around 30% of their meetings don't go well. So there's
hmm
a very limited percentage of their time where they are able to sell and sell productively. So
Right.
that's something which we felt is a big need in the market. So it's like less than 30% of the time is productive selling. How we can improve that, and that's where we focused our attention, and it all resulted into how the rep is behaving on a day-to-day basis from a
Mhm.
moment to moment and a meeting to meeting level. And we came up with this idea where we are building the product. Yeah, so quite excited for
Yeah.
the rep once the product comes out. On the organization standpoint, we are looking at the pain points organizations and the sales managers face. I think the biggest problem, and I think you're at Whatfix and you guys are solving it beautifully well, is the
hmm
tool adoption. The investments that are made on large tools, like I mean Salesforce adoption, or it's ERP adoption, or any of the other
Yeah.
tools out there, they are going through a lot of challenge with respect to adoption and the investment ROI. And we just
Right.
feel that there are too many tools in sales and very less efficiency. On an
Yeah.
average, if you look at a team in a technology industry which is into sales, they use around 10 to 12 tools on the sales
Right.
side.
hmm
There are a lot of point solutions which just get aggregated, and then finally, as a result of it, I mean, you would have heard the saying, "Too many cooks spoil the broth." So
Yeah.
yeah, so it just doesn't work. So we were quite inspired with companies like Notion. I mean, where I mean, you can do a lot of things on it in a very intuitive and easy manner, designed quite beautifully well for the user, and you're able to like collaborate at the same time, and
hmm
able to like create something magical. So yeah,
Right.
we have some hypothesis on the way we are approaching. So it's quite interesting the way we can apply those principles to sales. Yeah.
Totally. It all comes down to efficiency and effectiveness, right? So everyone wants to be better, faster, and cheaper, but most of the companies would fail, at attempting all three. Like these companies would majorly focus on being faster and cheaper from a financial standpoint, thinking that that will lead to a better outcome. But these companies do think better in the short term is more valuable than best in the long term, and then all these things happen that you are trying to solve with Nectar. That's a really great thing. Also, like I see that this, with all these great numbers that you shared, right, it will take like around a year for a sales rep to perform like a tenured sales rep when you newly hire them. So so there's a lot of investment that would go from a company into that particular sales rep and all the sales reps, right? So you saw this being like a necessity for most of the companies out there, right? And this makes me think of or relate to the same kind of scenario that happened in during 2008 as well, right? So in 2008, the it's not the same kind of scenario as we are in 2020, but it's very similar, that in terms of the economic standpoint of the world. So that, but out of that, the like so when the world came out of 2008 recession, so there were many great companies that were formed in, in from that recession, right? So it was Uber, it was Airbnb. So maybe maybe I can think, right, Nectar can be one of those companies that can come out of 2020, because as you rightly said, right, so the productivity of salespeople is falling down and down with all these new tools that are coming in and new processes that are coming in, right? So they have to stay on top of all these tools constantly, and which keeps on changing. Again, adoption is a big issue that we are trying to solve as well. But and since in this situation, like everyone going remote, the productivity would hamper even more, the efficiency would hamper even more. And I think you guys are trying to solve that particular thing at with Nectar.ai. So what do you think on
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. It's very
that? Mm-hmm.
interesting, and it's very relevant problems. Something I have personally faced, something which my colleagues and
Yeah.
friends have faced, something the ecosystem is facing. What I thought could be like a local scenario turned out to be a global scenario. There's a lot of action that has happened in sales productivity space or sales tools in general in last, especially last decade. And if you look at it, 1990s was all about like ERPs and the core systems, and then 2000 you saw Salesforce, and it was the decade there, and CRMs started becoming the norm, and then there was 2010 and beyond, where there was all about marketing automation. And I would say now is the decade for sales tech. I think sales tech is
Yeah.
definitely a big focus, and sales was a neglected function if you look at technology. I mean, we all had like CRM as a core platform, and CRM are meant to collect vast amounts of data, but many
Yeah.
organizations fail to turn the vast data that they have collected into anything actionable. One is the
Right.
quality of the data. Second is making sense of that data and converting into something actionable. It is used for great reportings and analysis, but then it's not resulting into actions on the front line. And that's where we felt that this work to be done. And if you look at today's frontline, today's salespeople are selling way differently what people sold 20 years back. So a lot of the CRMs
Right.
that were built like long back would necessarily not be able to do what today's salespeople will need. Like today, people are
Mm-hmm.
working on Slack, WhatsApp, video calls are going to be the norm in terms of their own experience as users. Most of the salespeople also use B2C apps, and they're like great B2C apps out there which offer them great experience. So they don't like to like work on traditional B2B systems, and that's where I think Whatfix is doing a great job of like helping organizations solve that adoption problem and trying to make the investments work. And that's a great cause, and I think you guys are doing quite well there. We're just attempting to build a product that itself should be intuitive enough and should be high on adoption from day one, because it's built for the users by the users who feel the same pain and who feel what the users would go through. So that's the
Sure.
approach
Yeah.
that we are taking. So yeah, we're looking at launching the product later this year. We're currently in the stealth mode and coming out of stealth soon. We opened up for early access, and early access program has already got huge response. We've signed up more than 10 companies for our early access programs, and we continue
Mm-hmm.
to sign up a few more as we get started.
Right. And can you tell us more about the company, which is Nectar.ai, as the company? Like, how big is the team?
Yeah, so we got a lot of encouraging response. So once we started, so I have the first person to sign up was my co-founder and CTO and a good friend of mine, Arvind, who's worked at Capillary as well. And we actually come from same college. So we both went to IIT Kharagpur. I know him for 17 years. We're family friends. So know each other quite well. So he was the first guy I called. I told him about the whole sales productivity space and I was looking to solve. And he was at Zendesk in Singapore doing quite well, and he obviously understands the sales tech as well, having been part of Zendesk and all. So I mean, we both got equally excited of opportunity to be able to work together on this, and he just like quit the next day and joined me, and we got started. And we now have a 8-member team across 4 different markets. So we were remote first from day one. So while the world
Nice.
is getting adjusted to the COVID norm and the future of work, we
Mm-hmm.
were actually into the future of work from day one. So
Right.
we have employees in 4 countries: India, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Singapore. And
Nice.
we've been able to collaborate quite seamlessly. We never felt a need to have an office, and we've been able to operate very seamlessly. Our prospect list and the early access customers who signed up with us are spread in 3 countries. We've been able to engage with them in a very meaningful manner. We end up speaking to over 150 users before we even wrote a single line of code. And these users were in some 20 odd countries. We again did all remote interactions with them. And so it was quite easy and intuitive for us from being like set up for remote first from day one. So the team is quite excited as well in the way the product is shaping up. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I think we have reached the course here. I have like a few lightning questions, which you can answer with whatever that comes on top of your mind.
Sure.
So yeah. So what do you know about your work now that you wish you would have known when you first started?
The ability to stay focused.
And so what did your biggest professional failure teach you?
Always go multi-threaded. I mean, it was related to sales. So early days, I would talk to a single prospect, and I would just work with them and try to see if the deal gets closed. But I realized that it's very important to go multi-thread in any opportunity or any prospecting, and I lost a big deal early on by
Sure.
just being single-threaded. Yeah, so
Hmm.
that was one learning. So always like go multi-threaded.
Great. And my last question would be, what's the number one thing that has helped you to shorten your craft's learning curve?
I think my ability to be open to ideas and feedback. I think
Mhm.
everybody makes mistakes. It's quite natural to us as humans. How quickly you learn from those mistakes, and you can only learn when you take feedback in. So it's quite
Mhm.
important. So I've always taken feedback from my prospects if I've lost a deal on why they didn't go with me, and I
Right.
took that feedback quite seriously, and then I made sure that the next person I talk to, I cover the thing that I did not cover the last time. So I mean, I think taking that feedback and learning and avoiding the mistake to repeat is something which definitely helped
Yeah.
me learn faster. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Always keep growing is something that I also take very seriously for me as well. So that's very insightful, Abhijit. So it has been a great talking to you about all these things, expanding in Asia, about sales productivity, about your new venture, which is Nectar.ai. And it's really amazing.
It's been my pleasure as well, Sunil. You've been a great host, and I think this
Yeah.
SaaS podcast is a great initiative. I think gives us all an ecosystem to talk to each other, share our learnings, and I think what you're doing is quite useful and meaningful for a lot of people out there, a lot of entrepreneurs who might be starting up, a lot of entrepreneurs who are in the middle of their journey. So
Yep.
continue the good work. We'll look forward to hearing
Thanks.
more podcasts as you record them in days
Yeah.
forward.
Thanks a lot, Abhijit. I mean, that's what I intend to do. Maybe speak companies who want to expand in Southeast Asia would love to listen to you, and I just, gave them a way to listen to you.
Thanks, Sunil. Looking
Yeah.
forward, and you have a great day ahead, and stay safe.